trouble would all go away. And when night rolls over, I'd bring to you, bring to you, bring to you. And when night rolls over, I'd bring to you the first song of the day. And away we'd go, away we'd go. Your trouble would all go away. And when night rolls over, I'd bring to you the first song of the day. If I were a flower, I'd bloom for you, bloom for you, bloom for you. If I were a flower, I'd bloom for you till petals had all blown away. I'd spring from your garden with news for you, news for you, news for you. I'd spring from your garden with news for you. The trouble had all gone away. Bloom for you, bloom for you. Spring from your garden and bloom. I'd spring from your garden with news for you. The trouble had all gone away. Ooh. If I could be near you, I'd cling to you, cling to you, cling to you. If I could be near you, I'd cling to you. Our trouble would all go away. I'd lay down beside you and bring to you, bring to you, bring to you. I'd lay down beside you and bring to you the last song of the day. And away we go, away we go. Our trouble would all go away. And when night was over, I'd bring to you the first song of the day. Ooh.
Good morning. Welcome to the Community Church of Chapel Hill Unitarian Universalist. My name is Don Katahdin, and I am a member of the Worship Associates Ministry. I especially welcome any visitors or newcomers to our church and call your attention to the special note for you on the back side of our order of service, Welcome Guests and Newcomers. I would also like to welcome those of you attending online. Lyrics to hymns and all elements of the service may be found on the live stream screen, and a complete order of service, including this week's announcements, is available via the link on the Sunday morning email and on the church website. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. The in-person Sunday social is held immediately following this service. Please turn off or silence any cell phones that we may have a more worshipful experience. I now invite Allison Eskildsen to talk about the Reproductive Justice Task Force.
Good morning. As John said, I am Allison Eskildsen, not Melva Oak. I stand before you to thank you for all of the leadership and all of the work that you all do for various types of justice work. But this morning I want to focus on what members of this congregation are doing as a result of the Supreme Court having overturned Roe v. Wade. When that happened, there were members of this congregation who got moving. And with Reverend Thom's approval, they became founding members, and this congregation became a founding member of what will soon be called the Interfaith Voices for Reproductive Freedom. Last year, over 1 million American women had abortions. That's nearly 1 in 4 women. Over 60% were medication abortions utilizing mifepristone, a hormone-blocking drug. It is commonly used by women seeking abortions, women experiencing the sudden loss of a pregnancy, and women facing other healthcare emergencies. For over 20 years, it has proven to be a highly effective and safe medication. Despite this, the U.S. Supreme Court chose to hear oral arguments about limiting access to mifepristone, a potential challenge to the FDA's regulatory authority. The hearing occurs in 2 days, on Tuesday, this Tuesday. A major protest on the steps of the Supreme Court is planned. At the same time, led by our church and working with our interfaith partners, we plan to stage a protest in Raleigh at the federal courthouse on Tuesday. Please join us in voicing our UU values-based support for reproductive freedom and bodily autonomy. If you are in the reproductive age group most impacted by these decisions, we especially hope you'll join us. We also hope parents and grandparents and everyone concerned about reproductive freedom to be with us in Raleigh at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays. And there is a little detail in your order of service. And you can see me after the service at the Side with Love table in the fellowship hall.
Please stand in body or spirit for our opening hymn, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door. It can be found on page 1 of the gray hymnal. As Unitarian Universalists, we stand for freedom of thought. We reject the banning of books and ideas. As Unitarian Universalists, we stand for the responsible search for truth. We reject the rewriting of history. In this faith, we support the democratic process. We condemn efforts to suppress or disenfranchise voters. In this faith, we believe that each person must have agency over their own body. We condemn attempts to control women's bodies. In this church, we honor the worth and dignity of every person. We reject homophobia and transphobia in our society and in our laws. In this church, we stand for loving our neighbors as ourselves. We condemn the demonization and scapegoating of immigrants. We gather this morning with our longings, our visions, and our dreams for this world. We gather this morning to recommit to living our values in the world. Come, let us worship together. You will find the words to the chalice lighting in your order of service. Please join me if you wish to do so. History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again. Lift up your eyes upon the day breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Please stand in body or spirit. Oh, not yet. Sorry about that.
Okay.
We'll stand in body.
We'll stand in body and spirit.
I'll just go like this.
Okay. I ain't afraid of your Yahweh. I ain't afraid of your Allah. I ain't afraid of your Jesus. I'm afraid of what you do in the name of your God. I ain't afraid of your churches. I ain't afraid of your temples. I ain't afraid of your praying. I'm afraid of what you do in the name of your God. Rise up to your higher power. Free up from fear, it will devour you. Watch out for the ego of the hour. The ones who say they know it, we're the ones who will impose it on you. I ain't afraid of your Yahweh. I ain't afraid of your Allah. I ain't afraid of your Jesus. I'm afraid of what you do in the name of your God. I ain't afraid of your churches. I ain't afraid of your temples. I ain't afraid of your praying. I'm afraid of what you do in the name of your God. Rise up, find a higher story. Free up from the gods of war and glory. Watch out for the threats of purgatory. The spirit of the wind will make a killing offer, sin and Satan. I ain't afraid of your Bible. I ain't afraid of your Torah. I ain't afraid of your Quran. Don't let the letter of the law obscure the spirit of your love. It's killing us. I ain't afraid of your Yahweh. I ain't afraid of your Allah. I ain't afraid of your Jesus. I'm afraid of what you do in the name of your God. I ain't afraid of your money. I ain't afraid of your culture. I ain't afraid of your choices. I'm afraid of what you do in the name of your God. I ain't afraid of your Sunday. I ain't afraid of your spirit. I ain't afraid of your teachings. of what you do in the name of your God. I ain't afraid. I ain't afraid. I ain't afraid. I'm afraid of what you do in the name of your God.
So each week we hold a time in our service for those who've come with either a personal joy or a personal concern to come forward, place a stone in the water bowl, and briefly share in a couple of sentences your joy or your sorrow. I'm going to place a couple of stones to begin this morning, and then I invite people to come down on either side and place a stone and briefly share their joy or sorrow. First stone that I place this morning is for a member of our church, Chris Lilly. I learned last week, right before the service started, that he had suffered a head injury, and after the second service last week, I went and paid him a visit. He's on the mend and is now in the rehab hospital in Hillsborough, which is good news for Chris. I want to place a stone in memory of Barbara Dennis, a beloved member of our congregation who passed away on Wednesday. And I just want to place this stone for Barbara's daughter, Hope, and for everyone who misses her. The final stone is a stone for the caring ministry of our church, for whom 2024 has been a hard-working year for our caring ministry, and I just want to place this stone of gratitude and love for all the important work that they're doing in our community.
Two stones for joy and sorrow. I'm Diane Williams, and my generation of my family has never lost anyone. And in a very short span of time, I lost my sister, my cousin who grew up across the street from me, and a cousin-in-law whom I've known since high school. And my family's very, very far away from here. And the community church caring committee reached out to me and lent me a beautiful handmade quilt to keep for a while. And thanks to Sandy and Ivy for that. And my family in Arizona were just thrilled that someone here was helping me during this time.
So I dropped two stones, and the first one is for Barbara Green. Some of you may know her because she was a longtime member of the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Hillsborough and a longtime participant of SUSE. She and her husband, Dick, were actually married at SUSE before I was born, but she passed yesterday. She died peacefully in hospice, and so I just wanted to send love to her family and everyone who knew her. And my second stone is a stone of gratitude. 2 weeks ago, for the first time ever in my life, I had a really serious allergic reaction to something. I didn't know that I had food allergies, but I ate something and I went into anaphylaxis. And my 15-year-old called our across the street neighbor, and our neighbor was there in 30 seconds and had me to urgent care in under 5 minutes. And they had, they gave me multiple injections of epinephrine within a minute of me getting there. And I have no doubt that they saved my life, and I'm just so, so grateful for the support and help that I got.
Hi, I'm Liz Ness, and I have a joy today to share that we just completed our first class of OWL for adults over 50, and it was amazing, and I just want to say how much I appreciate everybody that participated. I really have so much gratitude for Rachel Rose, who was an amazing co-facilitator, and OWL is really one of the reasons that brought me to this community several years ago, and so it means so much to be able to participate in the bigger program as a facilitator, so it was great. Thanks.
A final stone is placed this morning for all the joys and sorrows that we hold in our hearts that were not spoken. I invite you to join with me in a time of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, source of our becoming and our being. We hold in our hearts this morning the struggle and the healing and the loss experienced by those in our congregation. We hold the lives of those we love, of those who touched our lives in our families, in our congregations, in our wider community. We hold those lives with love in our hearts. We give thanks for each other's compassion and care and mercy. We know how important it is that our lives are witnessed, that we do not need to go through our struggles alone. On this morning, we hold and we lift up our ability to be agents of compassion, to be workers for justice, to be advocates for a world made fair. We connect with our voices, speaking out. We connect with our presence showing up. And we connect with one another in the work of building the world. Amidst all the joys and the sorrows shared this morning and those joys and sorrows that we hold in our own hearts, I invite us to take a few moments to hold a silence together. I invite you to be still for a moment. Our sung meditation this morning is number 123, Spirit of Life. And I think I'm going to invite us to rise as we sing. And I think we're going to, Keith, is it okay if we sing it through twice this morning? Yeah, we're gonna sing it through twice. We've planned these things well in advance, so I invite you to join in singing.
Good morning. So I think most of you know how excited I was to have the opportunity to come to the Community Church of Chapel Hill to do my 2-year internship. I saw a healthy and a loving congregation where I could learn and grow as a minister. I did have one major concern about moving to Chapel Hill. And it was one of the first things that I asked Thom about before I agreed to come here. And that was, would my nibbling ash be safe here? If we moved together, would they be okay? Sorry, this is much harder than when I speak about myself. Ash is my brother's youngest child. And my husband and I have been raising Ash along with my sister and her husband since my brother got leukemia and then died. Ash is transgender. They have been on a hormone blocker, and they are in the process of transitioning. They require quality and consistent medical care, and they need our support and love. They need to be able to walk down the street, go shopping, eat in a restaurant without being harassed or threatened. We love Ash with all of our hearts. So I was greatly relieved when Thom said that Chapel Hill was basically awash in rainbow pride flags, and that it was generally a safer place. So I signed my contract. My family and I agreed that this has been one of the best decisions I have ever made in my life. And I cannot wait for Ash to come visit once their semester at UConn ends, and we can spend hours out in the woods looking for reptiles, which is their absolute passion in life. It is not mine. I have a feeling of trepidation each time an election comes. For me, each election brings the question of whether Ash will be able to continue to be protected under the law in this state or in this country. This coming election is going to be so important. This is a time for us to do everything we can to ensure that North Carolina has a future that promised to be a beautiful, a kind, and a safer place for us and our families to live and to thrive for a very long time to come. Thank you.
Freely have we received gifts that minister to our needs of body and spirit. Gladly we bring to our church and its wide concerns a portion of this bounty. If you wish to donate online, there is a QR code on the back of the orders of service, and there is information on the church's website. We will now receive our morning offering.
Excuse me, sir, what did you say? When you shout so loud it's hard to tell. You say that I must change my ways, for I am surely bound to hell. Well, I know you'd damn me if you could, but my friend, that's simply not your call. If God is great and God is good, why is your heaven so small? You say you know, you say you've read that holy Bible on your shelf. Do you recall when Jesus said, "Judge not, lest ye be judged yourself"? For I know you'd damn me if you could, but my friend, that's simply not your call. If God is great and God is good, why is your heaven so small? With your fists that shake and your eyes that burn, what makes you do these things you do? I would not be surprised to learn someone somewhere excluded you. But my friend, imagine if you would, a love
know we're going to have time to thank them after the service, but I just want to say thanks to Cheryl and to Danny and to Keith Sawyer for doing our music this morning. It's a treat. As I begin, I want to say just a word about how this morning's sermon came to be. Earlier this spring, a member of our congregation made an appointment to come and meet with me in my office. And the purpose of his visit was to urge me, challenge me, exhort me to preach the sermon that I'm going to preach this morning. He came to meet with me and asked me to take seriously the threat of Christian nationalism and to challenge me to use my leadership to speak out on this topic and to urge our congregation to become more deeply involved in pro-democracy work and to urge our members to get more involved in electoral politics. I mention this member of our church's conversation with me with both appreciation as well as trepidation. Appreciation because I find it helpful and interesting to know what people are thinking and wanting. And I also appreciate direct communication. Direct conversation and expression of your desires and concerns and wants is the most effective and healthiest way to get what you need. But also trepidation, because having said that, I worry that I'm going to be flooded with like a whole bunch of requests for appointments. Because I have to tell you that meeting with me and saying you want something is no guarantee that you'll actually get it. Ministry, after all, is about disappointing people at a rate that they can tolerate. It's actually a line, there's a professor of leadership at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard named Ron Heifetz, who's an expert, and he actually says that leadership is disappointing people at a rate that they can handle. And that's one of his lessons, so. I like my version of it too. So what I want to do this morning with you is talk about Christian nationalism and the threat that it poses. I want to talk about the role that our church might play and is playing, and that we might play as individuals in opposing Christian nationalism. And I want to light a bit of a fire under us to become more involved in this work as an expression of our deepest religious values. So I want to begin by talking about Christian nationalism. And while researching this sermon, I found, when I did a Google search, I found a sermon delivered by a progressive Baptist minister given 1 year ago at the UU Church in Fresno, California. The name of the preacher that morning, a guest preacher, was Reverend Paul Brandeis Rauschenbusch. And I thought, well, that's one heck of a name. So I looked him up, and it turns out he's actually the great-grandson of Louis Brandeis, the first Jewish justice on the Supreme Court. And he's also the great-grandson of Walter Rauschenbusch, who was a great Protestant theologian and really the originator of the social gospel movement, the idea that the Christian faith calls us to work for social reform on behalf of the hungry and the homeless, the widow and the orphan, the sick and the poor, through not only service, but through social transformation. And if that's not enough, I also found out that another set of Paul Brandeis Rauschenbusch's grandparents were lifelong Unitarian Universalists, which makes him, I think, the most interesting person in the world. So Paul Brandeis Rauschenbusch said this when he spoke to the UUs in Fresno, California. He said, quote, "Christian nationalism has its roots in the dangerous myth that we were founded as a Christian nation and that Christianity holds a privileged place in our nation that must be preserved at all costs. Christian nationalists use the rhetoric of the Christian nation, by which they mean a nation grounded in white supremacy, xenophobia, patriarchy, and authoritarianism, to dictate who is a true American and who will be relegated to perennial outsider status. The goal of Christian nationalism, he said, is the consolidation of power in the hands of an exclusive religious and political movement that is using the churches and the courts and electoral politics to gain power over a majority of the American people. He continued in his sermon that the goal of Christian nationalism is the establishment of a theocracy. And unfortunately, Christian nationalism is not relegated to the shadowed corners of our country. A poll recently released by the Public Religion Research Institute indicates that close to 30% of Americans are either adherents or sympathetic to Christian nationalism, and among white evangelical Protestants, that number jumps up to nearly 2 out of 3. Over 1 in 4 Americans believe that the United States should declare itself a Christian nation. Well, that's very alarming. The silver lining in these statistics is that 70% of Americans reject the idea that we're a Christian nation. And 75% of all Americans say that they prefer a country made up of a diversity of faiths and religions. Similarly, a strong majority of Americans reject Christian nationalist views on race, gender, immigration, and LGBTQ people. That's the silver lining. But the threatening cloud is that there is never a guarantee that views and values favored by a majority, even a supermajority of Americans, will result in policies and laws that reflect those values and views. Anthea Butler is a professor of religion at the University of Pennsylvania who specializes in the study of conservative Christianity. In 2021, she published her book, White Evangelical Racism, focused on how conservative Christianity has often promoted racism through our nation's history, from using the Bible to sanction slavery, to opposing integration under the guise of religious freedom. Butler writes, simply put, Christian nationalism is the belief that America's founding is based on Christian principles, that white Protestant Christianity is the operational religion of the land, and that Christianity should be the foundation of how the nation develops its laws, principles, and policies. And by Christianity, Butler, of course, means a version of Christianity, a perversion of Christianity, which puts wealthy white men at the center of political power and seeks to force their will on anyone else. We know, as we're going to stand up for on Tuesday, we know that abortion care, contraception, and in vitro fertilization, or IVF, are fundamental parts of a woman's human rights. They're also fundamental to a woman's economic opportunity in our society. Therefore, for Christian nationalists, they are a threat to male hegemony and must be restricted. We know that diversity, equity, and inclusion policies and programs are an important part of advancing educational and economic opportunities for people of color. Therefore, for Christian nationalists, they are a threat to white hegemony and must be eliminated. Demographically, we know that our country is expected to become majority non-white within the next 20 years. Therefore, for Christian nationalists, immigration is a threat to white hegemony and must be restricted. Pathways to citizenship must be opposed, and the African American vote must be suppressed. And for Christian nationalists, white male Christian hegemony is ordained by God. So they must reject the mechanisms of democracy when those mechanisms do not lead to their holding exclusive power, instead embracing insurrection and authoritarianism as a way of maintaining power. There is a spiritualization of political power that is at the heart of this movement. And there is also, I would add, a fear, a paranoia, a deep anxiety that permeates the lives of those who come to embrace Christian nationalism. It's a fear that is powerfully stoked exploited, manipulated, and weaponized by leaders in the movement, and fed by steady streams of disinformation. Apocalyptic thinking, fetishization of weapons, and conspiracy theories have all become much more mainstream in recent years as part of the rise of this movement. So what is the work before us? The work before us right now, I think, is largely focused on the fact that there's an election happening a little over 7 months away. And Christian nationalism is going to be on the ballot, nationally and here in North Carolina. The silver lining, of course, is that a majority of Americans and a majority of North Carolinians actually prefer democracy. The challenge is in making sure those voters actually turn out and vote their values. Voter turnout is an issue of enormous importance. Study after study has shown that when a greater percentage of people vote, when the number of people voting is larger, they tend to elect candidates who work to promote the common good. When the vote is suppressed, when a lesser percentage of people vote, they tend to select candidates who hold more extreme views and work to advance more extreme policies that go against the wishes of the majority. Unfortunately, voter suppression is very much a challenge as we move into this election season. In particular, one challenge is the new voter ID laws that have gone into effect in North Carolina. These laws will make it harder, are designed to make it harder for young people and poor people, among others, to exercise their right to vote. This adds a significant step because now not only do you need to get people registered to vote and make sure that they get to the polls, but now you have to get people registered, get them a form of identification, and get them to the polls. One big way that we can live our faith in the democracy over the next 7 months is by making sure everyone we know, not just each other, but our neighbors, our hairstylist, everybody, is registered to vote, has the correct identification to be able to vote, and actually goes to the polls. Another way is to get involved in nonpartisan organizations that have a track record of turning out the vote. This is a time to get involved with the UU Justice Ministry of North Carolina and their UU the Vote efforts. This is a time to get involved with other nonprofit organizations like You Can Vote that are working to empower, activate, inspire, and turn out voters, especially voters from historically marginalized communities. Another thing that you can do, and that I encourage you to do, is to get involved with candidates' campaigns and with partisan organizations, either at the level of the candidate or at the level of the political party. If you reject white Christian nationalism and favor multicultural liberal democracy, go get involved in the campaigns of the candidates who reflect your views. Go support them. In my own experience, I've found this work to be heartening. I'll confess, as a Unitarian Universalist, I don't get many opportunities to go door to door to talk about religion. That's absolutely not a thing that we do here. But I like going door to door to talk about my love of democracy and my faith in democracy. I actually find that kind of fun. Maybe I'm an outlier here. And phone calls and postcards and organizing. It's really fun, and it is actually empowering. It is deeply empowering to be able to say, I've done what I can do. I put in a good effort. I didn't take it for granted. I left it all on the field. There's a deep satisfaction and a peace that comes from that. So to the church member who made the appointment, thank you, I think. Don't go crashing my calendar this week, everybody. But seriously, there is if you are a person who finds yourself worrying, agonizing, what-ifing, if you find yourself in that cycle of worry and anxiety, the greatest way to confront that, to ease that, is to actually to do what you can do, and to do what you can do in community and in partnership with others. It is no guarantee, but it is deeply satisfying and does make a difference. Amen. Blessed be. And our closing hymn this morning is one that's fun to sing. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join in singing number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song.
The words for extinguishing the chalice are in your order of service. Please join me if you wish to do so. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Let us thank all of those who contributed in making this service. Please join us in singing Shalom. The words are in your order of service. As you are comfortable, please either hold hands with the person next to you or cross your arms over your heart. To you be. This is for next, sir.